are determinant for us to constitute a map of the supply chain, for us to identify clearly the factors of strangulation of this pipeline, and so we may be able to identify processes to improve the system. In some cases, these improvement systems are current. In other cases, we might assist a change of paradigm in logistic functions. So there's some sort of jump in the management of the logistics process. The study that we studied yesterday is exactly one of these situations, because we have here a transposition of the level of complexity and of the level of maturity of the logistic solution. Is that clear for you? Okay. So this slide that you see here shows us something, that the management of the supply chains always works with three types of flows. Which are these flows of logistics? Do you have the answer? Three flux. Three. Which is the first one? Or the logistics or supply chain, that is. What does it say in the Bible, the book of Genesis? There's a sentence that says that at the beginning was the verb. So, of course, the information. The first flux that we have to work on is information. The information flow that later will generate documental fluxes. And in the last 30 years, the technology, the information technologies have been given support and have been enabling the speed and the efficiency of this information. So we have this information flow, and we have simultaneously physical fluxes of goods and also a financial flux. So logistics, and more specifically the logistics in supply chain management, works and can't have execution levels that are deficient in terms of treatment of production, of information flows, physical flows, and also financial flows. They're all critical to deliver the merchandise. Without the financial expectation is not doable, and of course delivering the merchandise with a wrong process that generates mistakes, of course it's going to have bad consequences in the financial return that we're going to have. So we need to keep this in mind. This circuit makes us consider three different flows, and we have here the value chain that implies some infrastructures from the company, a management of the human resources from the company and from our partners. So we are working at three different levels of human capital. We're talking about human resources. We are also working on resources, organizational resources, and of course on knowledge. It's supported on technological development, on good purchase process that will accompany this CPOC that we mentioned there. So we have here all the phases of the CPOC. So we need to bring goods to the production, and then we have to deliver all of this, and we have to have a return at the level of the information, at the financial level as well, and eventually at the physical level, namely when we're talking about packing or CKUs, transport units that have to return to the base. Does it make sense? Is everything clear? No. I'm here just talking about this, but I don't believe it's very important. I would just like to focus here on a point regarding what are the main attributes of logistics and of logistics management that I'd like you to tell me. I'd like you to write down in a sheet of paper which could be some of the main indicators in logistic terms in a supply chain. We have the performance indicators, and we have the indicators that induce to change, that induce to a revision, which are the drive. Okay? So now some measures what happened and others are fundamental to understand what is the critical way to change and to innovation. Very quickly, the microphone is now working. At least I hope it is. I'd like each of you to tell me which product or which service you're going to choose, just to give us some ideas. It can be 2 or 3 if it helps you create more volume of indicators. Can it be a book ordered by the internet? Don't give me the indicators, I just want the product. Can it be a dish from Vista Alegre? You have to explain to our colleagues what Vista Alegre is. Vista Alegre is a brand internationally recognized. It is Portuguese brand of luxury dishes for the European to understand. So it's basically similar to the Limoges dishes. Elio, an after-sales service or a computer repairing service. Maybe a service for health services, and it can also be a pair of shoes that were ordered in a Northern American country, such as Nike, for example.
10 minutes, is it enough? 15 minutes? Is some of our colleagues want to say something? Is 10 minutes enough? 15, maybe? Is that enough for you? Is that enough? If you want to say something, please do. You can write and we will translate it here in the room.
Je croyais
que
je t'ai dit, une fois je t'ai dit, ta soeur a une coupe qui me plaît bien, la coupe que tu ne veux pas que je fasse. Ta nouvelle copine, c'est qu'elle est à Paris. Tu m'as dit que ta nouvelle copine, elle a compris que tu as dit comment je fasse et tu m'envoies les gros. Mais ça, c'était quand tu étais à Paris. Avant ces photos, il y avait déjà une autre photo d'elle de la même personne sur WhatsApp. Je te dis que je vois un visage, je ne l'oublie jamais. Surtout si c'est ta photo de profil. Tu viens de dire ceci. Pendant que non, c'est que non, moi je te demandais. C'est que pendant que toi, tu comprends, tu te dis à même si tu es ici à 6h05 que tu prends le principe, tu vas vers l'heure. puoi sbagliare. Almeno se la Sampdoria non ti cura, segna nel primo tempo, dicerai bocci, 10% meno. Quindi questa, vedi quanto viene.
Are you ready? Shwana, 10 minutes already? Okay, let's do it. Try and have the different inputs where we have logistics attributes for products and services that must take into account the main added value. A form, time, and locality. All of this want the best unit price possible. Not to be Gustavo again, can you start? According to what I said previously, I chose of the Vista Alegre porcelain service that intends to be customized. I believe that it is a ceramic service that brings added value due to the not to the excessive massification of sales of the product itself. And I mean with this that I want to they want to use a model to sell for the client just in time. I do believe that the order acquisition of the product is given to each one of the shops of Vista Alegre, and that is redirected that same order of purchase
Wow,
a
primo marcatore Lazio Genoa.
warehouse and the product
Chiusa
is shipped.
basta. Radu Stefan, Parolo
Okay,
Marco,
easy. We need
Catale
to start
Danilo, Felipe
growing.
Alex,
Where is the consumer? Consumer is
Krishna,
here, right?
Elda, Mauro,
Clients.
Sisto
The end
Corri,
client.
Benzema, Illa, Salvo, Lasso,
Client that it's the owner and our
Charm,
client
Taxidis, però.
in a store.
Allora, sta cosa non ti può servire,
And when
stampa
you're
gratuitamente
here, is it ready?
riciclabile.
Sì, gol di Gorampante, mi ha dato 34 come primo marcatore.
When we go to a store to have a plate for Vista Alegre from the catalog, and it does. The final client needs to take the right step. The shop gives the order of acquisition. I'm the consumer, you are the consumer.
I don't have to buy. Yes, you don't have to buy. Isn't it? Yes, of course. However, is for football. It's very complicated in logistics. In the case of Vista Alegre, there can be a benefit. But okay, we're facing a mistake. But in the case of Vista Alegre, Diogo, just stay here. We're going to listen to the opinion of other colleagues. What do you think of this example of Diogo? Who wants to speak about it? Do we have an advantage towards Vista Alegre, or do we have a competitive disadvantage towards it most of the time? Who wants to comment on it? No one wants to comment on it? Carlos? No? Rui? Gustavo? Hélio? Gustavo? I believe that it is an advantage because most shops that sell dishes and porcelain only have for sale products who are in the shop. In the case of Vista Alegre, besides making the product, they also have a line of products that can be ordered, personalized. You don't go very often to Vista Alegre, either to their competitors, don't you, Elio? I think that the availability is here a factor of success. Someone who has a catalog, an open shop, must have a product ready to be delivered, and the faster this delivery is made, the greater is the probability to keep the client. In this case, we are facing an industry. We're not facing an handmade product, a customized product. Ceramics, the Vista Alegre ceramics, as well as TrainMoS ceramics, except some exceptions of course, they do mass productions. So it's a great distribution market. It's not in a market in a small frame that is made by the model. The purchase is generally made without time, and that's a great disadvantage. In the case of Vista Alegre, there is, in the Portuguese and the European market, there are other alternatives, German, French, Czech, so it's a very complicated factor. Because the question here is that when nowadays shops are in a business where the catalog is very important but not determinant, they work online with orders. An order is made and there's a delivery deadline for the delivery. But in the case of Vista Alegre or TrainMoS ceramics, there must be an availability of the product. When we're facing great orders, for example, gifts for weddings where the bride and groom choose to get a porcelain service. So this order can be placed 2 months in advance. And here we don't need product in the shop. The shop has a list of what the bride and groom want. And people who go to the shop say that they just want to pay for it and that the porcelain service will be delivered to the couple's house. But we have here a factor that is defined not by what we manage to do, but when we fail. And here the level of satisfaction should be around 99%. I can speak about my logistics experience, and it's sometimes to compete with our competitors as logistic operators in terms of distribution and delivery to the consumer. We have to change our degree of delivery. We have to change the percentage. The idea was not to manage 99% of the cases. We had to introduce a factor in the delivery to pass it to 1,000, where we have to deliver 999. We have an availability indicator or a success indicator that goes from a percentage to a number. In the vehicle industry, for example, we don't work with percents, we work with numbers. To have an idea of the importance to fight waste, because in each 100 pieces that are installed in a car, one has a default, then we have a great problem in the whole assembly line. Volkswagen is a different case. We'll then speak about it. It's very interesting for nowadays, for this day to close the session. It can have great consequences in the supply chain and in the proposal of value of the European car business. It had great implications here. What happens with Volkswagen when we have problems of inspections, quality inspections, balances with assembled cars, so lean management. So we gather here everything that has been the 20 last year, the tools for the 20 last years. And in the reports we say that everything is great, but really we have a great waste. Because someone there just told us to forget these elements. We say that the milk is pure, but it's filled with toxins. If this was in China when we had that problem with the milk, the managers were executed. If we transfer this to Europe, this would be very difficult. So moving on. Diogo, what do you want to say about this case? I just want to add something regarding Vista Alegre. It seems to me, from the experience that I have, that Vista Alegre also it has a product that doesn't need to have an existing stock. I might be wrong, but I believe that Vista Alegre products are not products. Well, what's the target of Vista Alegre? It's not a mass target. Yes, but the availability is important. Yes, it is. But in these cases, I forgot to quote, in the cases where the product is customized, I think that every customer that is going to acquire a product at Vista Alegre is aware that the product might not be available. No, he's not aware of that. Every time I bought products there, I never considered that answer. When I buy a glass of wine from some brand, I don't want to make publicity, I expect them to have them. It depends. In the case of personalized, customized products as well? Yes. Well, it depends. Yes, but in these cases, it's made with some time in advance. The question I'm asking here is what happens when we go to purchase in the store, not when we place an order. I might have interpreted you wrong here, but we discussed the theme pretty well. That was good. Next one. Who goes next? People abroad, nobody wants to say anything? Don't you have cases you want to present? In my case, I ordered sneakers online. The price was probably not the critical factor, because it's a different product that wasn't available in the local market, and the greater logistic factor was the time that the product will take to be delivered here. There's a great easiness in terms of home delivery because it's quite practical. And being myself a bit reluctant to online shopping because it gives me other guarantees to go to a store and have the product in my hands, I would much value the possibility to follow the material. So the traceability of the material, you want to follow where the material is. Yes, that's simultaneously two things that induces the device, so you can accompany the order, and you can also have the commodity to have the good delivered at home. So here we're speaking about the quality of the delivery and about keeping the deadlines, and of course the trust we have in the traceability. So time to wait, the fact of being in contact and knowing the course, the journey of the order. The several indicators that I have here are some of performance, other are drivers. In terms of performance indicators, in terms of we have here the time, the waiting time, the service time, of course. I also introduced the success rate of the several services, the several facets. We're here speaking about health services. I also mentioned the stock waste rate, because it's a stock that is quite volatile, and the mistakes regarding stock are not admittable, and the quality of the after service, and the rate of satisfaction of the customer. Of course, we're going to just choose one indicator, and we're going to operationalize that one. I wrote many more, but no, just give me one. The rate of stock waste. Of course, it's a logistic indicator.
Well, how can we measure in a unit of service provision of healthcare the waste index of stock? Well, I would say it would be the quantity of items, tools, for example, or even medicine, that at the end of the validity date are sent back to the supplier or thrown away. These are obsolete products, right, that lose validity, okay? To measure the quantity, and how would we calculate this? There are no indicators without calculation. It needs to be associated with a formula. We need to have a formula. And what would be the products that lose validity, that are obsolete? Percent or per thousand? Okay, but we need to pick up the quantity of items, okay, or of bought units, right? And to calculate the rate, the percentage, or per thousand of units that would end at the end of the validity date without being used. This example of Carlos is very important. We can have 20 logistic indicators, but I need to have 4 or 5, but they need to be associated with a way of calculation. And what is that indicator useful for? We have the calculus. And now what do we want to do with the indicator? Okay, the ideal idea is to optimize and maximize the market. That's the goal, to reduce the number of products that become obsolete within the useful life date. Then we have the indicator and then the calculation, and now we need to have initiatives to fight this. That's why we have the performance indicator and induction driver for the initiatives. What can we do to buy smaller quantities? This is an initiative. Then, this is one. To make the delivery faster, we can negotiate with the supplier, consign stock. We can negotiate an initiative that he has a stock that it's made for my hospital, for the other hospital, for the third, fourth hospital, and we have a stock at the house of the client that is shared by 4 hospital units. My problem with this is that the lack of stock implementing those measures, the problem of the lack of stock makes it bigger, and the lack of stock in a health unit is not permitted at all. For me, a unit factory of sausages and a health unit need to function in the same way. 99% of the cases, they cannot be more or less, and they only fail because the supply chain is not adequate. It's not duly accompanied and worked on, qualified, if you will. Because what we need to understand, it's an important question here, the level of maturity level of the logistic chain. This is fundamental. What is the maturity level? We can consider 5 maturity levels. That's more or less shown in the literature that I have told you about. We can have a maturity level in which we are only thinking about logistics within our organization. Then we evolve and start thinking about logistics and the articulations between the logistic needs of our organization, our suppliers. Then we are associating our clients, and we can get to a maximum level in which we are working in a maturity level of the sector. I'm a service provider of health care. I have need for alcohol, for syringes, hydrogen peroxide, devices, medical devices that are specific. And what I do is not have a stockage between the supplier and my client, but my supplier himself can manage and create a supply context that it has a percentage that it's significant to have a stock to the supply chain that it's constituted by a set of clients, for example, of a certain geographical area. And because there are variations in the consumption of each one of these health provision units, what we have is taking into account the variation that we see to have a context that is shared diminishes the probability of being non-accordance with that unit. And this is a maximum level of maturity in the supply chain. Every time that the consumption goes beyond the stock of the comfort area that the supplier has, it can generate a purchase order of products or provisioning in order to increase production. Here you are seeing an ERP. We have a process of management of production that is associated with consumption. This is the paradigm of the end of the 20th and 21st century, which is the production is not developed starting with initiatives and stimulus of the manufacturer, but by indicators and signaling on the hand of the demand. Not the supply that it's doing the production, it's the demand. Not the demand I just sold and that's it. No, it's the demand that it's composed. It's a purchase process that it's composed by client indicators that will start to generate a provisioning sector, then production, and then stock. Was I clear, Carlos? This is a process that is used in Portugal because most of the labs of medicine and labs of medical devices and medical equipment work within this logic because there are great regions of consumption and great clients. To have a stock that is simultaneously used to supply the needs with some variation on the consumption, it has the benefit of an intermediate buffer that works for everyone. Was I clear? But once again, we need to associate to the need of reducing waste. We need to associate a way of calculus and have initiatives that are associated with indicators of management. The drivers for drivers of induction of process, okay, that are married with the performance indicators. The success of the induction one will transform in a good performance success, okay? This is clear to you? Next. Carlos, thank you. Earlier. Well, on my case study, this is a service of technical assistance after sale of an electronic apparatus. In this case, I have identified 3 main actors. An actor is a manufacturer of the personal computer, the other the transport company, and as a third actor, the partner that repairs the equipment. So this is a long chain. In this case, I have several points that I have the possibility as the client to analyze the development and the performance of the chain on the first actor, the manufacturer, to know that the help desk contact is or not fast, and if it's difficult or not, to activate the warranty of the equipment. Then I have the pickup time of the transport company on the second actor and the transit time of the transport company between my house and the place where the PC will be repaired. This info is important not only for me as a client, but also for the company that manufactures the PC, because this is a repair made within the warranty period. That information of transit time needs to be sent previewing the company that will repair, preparing the reception of the equipment and begin the work order. Then the company that repairs the equipment needs to perform a diagnosis to communicate that diagnosis to the final consumer, giving knowledge to the company that has supplied the equipment. And from here can arise the need to supply a substitution equipment. This means that the repair company must have in its stock companies that are similar to mine that are already configured, and they can supply an added value service to me because I'm the client. Okay, just a question here, Elliot. We have several intervenients for various activities that are part of a process, which is the after sale care to the client. Does it have any meaning to have excellent performance in everything that's technical service and administrative service, and then in the transport service, to have a long time to reposition the equipment? No, that's why I told you this. I gave you this example on how it is needed, not to have only an infrastructure of dynamics, and you have the passage of information between the different actors, but the need also to be completely motivated by the same drivers or the same goals, which is the final satisfaction of the client. It needs to be a lineup. There's no idea to have an excellent performance of a process and then having one of those elements of the supply chain from a service provision chain that we want of added value to have a lousy performance. So the logistics management cannot look only for the qualification of one or two or three agents, but it needs to look for the qualification of the process in its totality. To summarize this, it's not okay for me to have a big restaurant near the sea with great view to the sea, adequate, duly clean, well decorated with sun or with a moon, but then the fish that I'm serving to the clients, it's a bad quality fish. So it's all ruined. What we need to have, it's a global offer that's excellent. Our logistic offer can only be made by managing the supply chain motivated and aligned to be excellent. And that's the only way to make it a strategic competition factor. That's why we argue why countries that are far from the consumption centers can compete more than the strategies on the product. The strategy and the effectiveness of the supply chain is fundamental. It's a critical factor of success for its survival and even for its success, okay? So, Gustavo. No, it's the Gustavo, please. The product that I have seen was the book bought online. One of the indicators that I think I have identified is the number of intermediaries in the transport, as we saw in the previous session. When the information goes through different knots, different places, we can lose something. in this case, the less intervenience we have in the process, we can have the best service provision. What you want, Gustavo, is a delivery in the time that it's agreed. If the book is everywhere without being scratched, for you that's the important thing. If it went by 20 people, 20 agents or 2, is it important to you? No. For you personally, no. So let's focus. Your logistic indicator is the delivery in the time and place and price that were agreed, and the product is in good condition. Your case is in accordance with what are the 4 logistic attributes that are fundamental. The lowest price at the right time, at the right place, and in good conditions. Of course, that if our supplier uses 1, 3, or 4 partners, that's his problem. Of course, that he needs to have, and that brings us a good question. The supply chains live of good management of fundamental elements, which are infrastructures, info systems, people, and the effective processes of transport. Okay? If your supplier does this working only with a supplier for all the chain that goes from the A to Z, or if it works with 3 or 4, that's not important, because the most important is the result. What is important is that he knows that on the level of infrastructure, of human skills, on the info systems, and on the effective service provision in a way that its effectiveness that translates into the service and right price. Most of the companies lives of partnerships that it establishes with partners. FedEx, it's a great example. It's a giant in the world of logistics and transport and the supply chain. FedEx in Portugal has partnership, a mixed solution with a local operator. In Angola, it has a partnership with the same Portuguese operator in Angola, and in Mozambique, same thing. When someone is buying something that is being transported by FedEx, doesn't imagine that in Portugal and Mozambique is working with Rangel. I can tell you the name, of course. Rangel is a company that does this FedEx extension. By involving 2 or 3 people, it can eventually have additional weak points, but it depends on the maturity of the management in terms of the infrastructure, human skills, info systems, and operational execution. Okay, is this clear? Okay? Joanna, our colleagues all throughout the other places, our colleagues are very attentive, but they don't want to speak, right? Okay, maybe they will during the afternoon. Okay, to make this simple, we have a slide here that points out the fundamental factors of a winning supply chain. And so we have the importance of creativity and innovation, that it's focus in the client and in the supplier, because they cannot forget them. Development of capacities and competencies, partnerships development, logistics systems capacity, sophistication of the logistic information system, integration and domain of all the pipeline of the shipbox of the network, quick and proactive answers, and flexibility and precision of the service. So we can say that strategies, logistic strategies that drive to supply chains are set in processes, in people, in info systems, and in infrastructure. Does this make any sense to you? Right? Okay, let's continue. We have a sentence that summarizes logistics. Organization, planning, control and execution of product flux from the product development and its provisioning through production and distribution up to the final consumer in order to comply with the market requirement at a minimal cost and investment. So this means that we are looking for a relationship between cost and benefits, even for the logistic operator, by each company, by each client, by each supplier. Something that is common to the supply chain is the excellency of the service, of the production, with a cost that it's adequate, which is cannot be higher than the one that the client is available to pay and wants to pay. And this is an old question: how can we access value? Because all of us, we all say we need to have added value proposals. What's an added value proposition? Who wants to talk about this? When we are clients, how do we associate an added value proposition? Added value. Everyone speaks about added value. Please. Added value, I would say, it's a way for the client to benefit of any service or product that usually it wouldn't without paying more for it. Without paying more. Okay, so we are associated added value for not paying more for it. Is it? Rui. Well, with the question of not paying more, as a client, I don't agree, because if there was an added value and I can recognize that added value, I am available to pay more for it. Well, probably both of you placed the question that the proposal of added value is to add product to the service or a component of service of product to a certain price that our client agrees to pay because he feels that he is compensated by what we will additionally spend. So the added value proposals for the good of the company that's presenting them needs to cost more, because one of the problems that happens with a lot of companies that have a great focus on innovation is that many times they give their clients what the clients, okay, he takes it, but he's not valuing it. Diogo, the idea is that with the massification of those products, the value is spending more for each individual product, starting from a departure point, can be mitigated or reduced enough that the production in scale can beat this value. Of course, but this on the advantage of scale in production, but the added value, regardless of being made in scale or not, it's what the client accepts as reasonable, fair, for what he gets additionally. For example, Rui, he bought sneakers. He can accept that the total cost of the service, purchase and transport, can be $5 more, for example, as long as he gets it in 48 hours. Okay, it's added value. I consider that the $5 extra are very well used. Okay, he accepts it. Well, all of us accept this, exactly. But the company can only accept this if it has enough scale. Well, if it offers it, it needs to have scale. The problem is when the services offer those services and they don't charge over them, because there is a problem. We can have a business in which our service offering or our provision or added value, it's above what we are charging, because the client is not giving value to it. This is example of the circus. We had the ancient circus that had lions, turtles, horses, elephants, chimps, and clowns. And now we have a circus that only has horses and people. They reduce the offering, has less breadth in management, less costs of articulation, and of compatibility between the transport of all that fauna. This is circus, so fauna is correct. he reduced the offering and has improved the specific offer, and this is added value. To give you an example, maybe our partners in other countries can see cooking programs, and there is a famous cook, which is Gordon Ramsay, and one of the things that he does in the restaurants that he goes to, Hell's Kitchen or any other, is to look at the menu and to reduce from 30 dishes to 4 or 5, because he will manage the stock much better, less products to manage, fresher, without obsolete products, and a best job in the kitchen for the cooks. Who goes to that restaurant will pay what he feels he has. Instead of having 2 or 3 entrances, you have 10. 2 or 3 are enough for anyone, as long as they're good. To have 10 are not paying for the availability of all the 10. So a value proposal, it's something that the client understands as an advantage, and what he has to pay to have that proposal of added value can satisfy him physically, emotionally, or intellectually. Do you accept this definition? Is it clear? Okay? Okay. Well, let's get back to what we start highlighting, which is the importance of a strategic vision for the supply chain management. When we are talking about some of these points who are in this slide, we can understand that each company tries to look for its treasure map, and we all can remember the treasure island. Did anyone read the treasure island here? Only me? I'm so old. Ask our foreign colleagues. Did any of you read from Robert Richardson the Treasure Island? Did anyone read? Yeah? Did anyone read this? I don't think so. No one read this. You didn't see the movie or the TV series? Really? If tomorrow I was here, I would make you read the Treasure Island. It's as any treasure island at all. It's a set of personalities of people of a peaceful region in England. They get there thanks to the curiosity of a boy who receives them in a tavern, and he has a treasure map of a Caribbean island. And the local community with a judge, the mayor, and the equivalent, this is at the end of the 19th century, organizes an expedition to go look for the treasure. Of course, there is a set of adventures throughout the journey, and in the island, there was more people who knew about the treasure map. Most of the crew were ancient pirates, old pirates, former pirates, and there are operational and strategic changes in tactics to reach to the treasure. And this depends on those who have the treasure map. That's the more important, is to have the map. Although at a certain, almost at the end, there is a change, a very important change. Someone that knowing that he will never be able to find the treasure in the island, he gives the map away and waits for them to get the treasure, and then he will attack them when they have the treasure available. This focuses an important question. Each company needs to understand where is the box with the diamonds and the emeralds and the rubies, and how they can get there, but without being fragile in excess regarding competition. And that subject that we have here, that question when mapping our activity, is a map of our treasure island, of the value that we want to add. Someone yesterday spoke about Porter market. Is a market that is constantly being analyzed, being observed, it's being targeted of experiences. and of critical analysis of our competitors, of our clients, and globally it's even better, of new investors that have capital and are always looking for where to place their capital, where they have greater profitability for it. And so we need to understand that our business, on the one hand, up to date, when they are available for the future battle, and how are they mature enough to resist to external threats, okay? The SWOT analysis that everyone that's here has worked on. But that's not enough. We need to understand, regarding the management of the supply chain, what will make the difference. And in that sense, for you to read and give me a small comment, I will distribute a case. I will give you some documents. The title is Material to Build the TGV, Go from Porto to France by Train. I want you to tell me where we don't have an attempt of finding through the logistics service an advantage for this product, okay? Okay? Okay, so now we will read and give me just a few words about this case.
Who wants to go first? The importance of this solution, once again. Who wants to start talking about it? Carlos. I think that there is indeed an added value proposition by introducing the component of the induction of the logistic solution that was made before. And of course, there are many companies, Heineken, IKEA, that saw that there was an advantage in the solution, taking into account the reduction of the emissions of carbon dioxide. So there's here a global advantages in terms of sustainability by taking out several trucks between the ports and the assembling premises. And the companies recognize it as an added value, so it's a logistic improvement to the previous ways. Rui, more comments? I also highlighted here in this question of IKEA, Heineken, and other companies that integrate this association. There are customers that are more and more worried about the environment. The customer also recognizes this social responsibility of these great companies, so this is also a determinant factor. So marketing also is an option of added value for each element of this chain. So the consumer tries more and more, besides the cost, to be sensitive to the question of logistics, and that's very important. Nothing else to say? Ellie. I'd like to highlight as well the fact that we are using an infrastructure, the railway infrastructure that is national, instead of just using a port interface in Spain, in Catalan. So there's a different strategy of being more independent in terms of logistic resources that we don't need from other countries. And I'd like to highlight also this tendency of green transport and eco-effectiveness in transport, also associated to the notion of social responsibility. That is the new norm that the companies have been taking into account, and that is integrated into the whole chain. So we start understanding that in terms of logistics, we are living in a moment and in a Northern American, Canadian, and European standard, but not only, but mainly, in which the good performance in terms of good practices, in terms of environmental sustainability and social responsibility that are recognized in the decisions and in the choice of the products by the consumers. So it's not just randomly that a good performance, well, it's not just about a good financial or a good logistic performance. So it's not about putting a product at the right time. How we do it and how we manage it is very important as well. These are core factors for this process. This introduces a main question, a central question, that is how we already spoke about indicators. So how can we improve? If we have indicators, it's because we have a product or an activity or a defined service. We have to do something else, that is analyze the result of these measurements and start implementation processes, actions, and initiatives that are going to rectify this, to next be able to control and to check the action or the set of actions that we are operating, taking into account some improvements and some results that we want to achieve. We saw we have results in social responsibility, sustainability. We have added value for the customer in terms of time and in terms of service. So this brings us to management tools. And this is typical of the projects of in logistics, that is the TMAC. But there's others. There's a fundamental thing here, the scientific method. There is no answer in supply chain management that doesn't take into account these processes, starting with the TMAIC. That is defining, measuring, analyzing, implementing, and controlling. That is the scientific approach. It's one of the main factors, the dominant factors in the supply chain management, and it's the scientific method applied to logistics and applied to the management of actions and of the supply chain. So we're now going to make our little break, and we'll be back at 5. Okay? To our colleagues from other countries, we'll see you soon.